Sometimes we are asked to predict the results of an experiment given that a particular hypothesis is true. A common mistake that students make is to predict the opposite results from what they should simply because they didn't stop to think about what the results are actually telling them or which hypothesis they are trying to support. The details of the experiment are critical. Let's take a look at an experiment done on aquatic plants to determine which wavelength of light they prefer. Aquatic plants spend all of their time underwater where only certain wavelengths of light diffuse efficiently. Scientists wondered if aquatic plants have evolved a mechanism to absorb long wavelengths of light at the red end of the spectrum or short wavelengths of light at the blue end of the spectrum. In other words, they had two hypotheses. Hypothesis number 1, aquatic plants absorb red light and not blue light, or hypothesis number 2, aquatic plants absorb blue light and not red light. To determine this, they placed two aquatic plants each into an apparatus like the ones shown here. The plant is placed in a beaker of carbonated water underneath an inverted funnel with a test tube over the top. This beaker is then placed inside a larger beaker of water that can be dyed any color in order to manipulate the color of light to which the plant is exposed. To determine if photosynthesis is occurring, scientists look for the accumulation of a gas bubble in the test tube, since oxygen gas is a byproduct of photosynthesis. Thus, if photosynthesis is occurring, a large bubble of gas will collect in the test tube. If photosynthesis is not occurring, no such bubble will form. Let's say I asked the following question. If aquatic plants absorb blue light rather than red light, in other words, if hypothesis number 2 is correct, what would I see in setup number 1? You might be tempted to answer that it will have a large gas bubble in it since the plant will be doing photosynthesis. However, what you might have failed to notice is that in setup number 1, the plant was exposed to long wavelength red light. So if aquatic plants really absorb blue light and not red light, in other words, if hypothesis number 2 is correct, you should not see a bubble of air if you expose the plant to red light. Now in setup number 2, where the plant was exposed to blue light, you would definitely see a large bubble forming if hypothesis number 2 is correct. Hopefully you can see from this example that you should pause before answering a question like this to make sure you take into account all the details of the experiment, what the results are actually showing, and which hypothesis you are trying to support with your prediction.